WandaVision Season 1, Episode 6 here today. We're talking all new Halloween, the long-awaited Halloween special of WandaVision that we've known about since the early previews of the show a long time ago. We're finally getting in Episode 6 today. And there's a lot to get to, probably more than it's even coming to mind right now. There's a lot to digest from this episode. We're going to welcome on everyone that was on last week. Same cast and crew, same great show. We'll talk all about it here today. Beginning with Doc, Chris Mueller at BR_Doctor on the Twitter machine. Chris, what's going on, man?
Not much. Super happy to talk about WandaVision every week.
It's my favorite day of the week. I mean, Fridays were always everyone's favorite day of the week, but especially now for WandaVision. I'm going to be really sad when it ends in like a couple of weeks, but I think even better than watching the show is talking about it with you guys right afterward. But Phil, welcome back, man. You are at PhilDL616 on the Twitter machine. What's going on, dude?
I'm good. How are you?
Doing great. And Jeff, we just pulled you in literally minutes ago. I DM'd you to see if you were available. You said yes, shockingly, and here you are to talk about WandaVision with us here today.
Yes, I came in like Roman at the end. I finally signed the contract, so it's an official match now.
I love it. Well, people can find you on the Twitter machine at JeffJSays. Chris, can you take us through the major points of this episode? Because there's a lot to talk about here.
Oh, man. I mean, yeah, so just let's start with the intro. Malcolm in the middle.
It popped. Well, before we go any further, who called that last week? Was it you, Jeff, or was it you, Phil?
I think it was. I thought it was Chris. It was either Chris or Phil. It wasn't me.
It wasn't me.
We said Modern Family.
We did say Modern Family, but someone did say Malcolm in the Middle, and I popped because I love that show. So when I saw it here, I loved that. But was that you, Phil?
Yeah. I don't remember. I know we talked about it, but
somebody definitely said it.
Yeah. We were trying to figure out like a 2000s sitcom that they could possibly do. Because what's weird is I was expecting this to be the Roseanne episode, and it felt like they just jumped right over the 90s. So I'm almost wondering if the next episode is going to move back, because it seems like Wanda sort of reset everything when she expanded the barrier. But we'll talk about all this as we go.
Was Family Ties the 80s or was that the 90s?
It was 80s.
I think it was 80s.
It was heavy 80s.
It might have ended in the early 90s, but it was 80s for sure.
Because I know last week also had that Full House flavor, too, that we talked about. So I didn't know. I was thinking the same thing. I was wondering, it's awesome that we're getting Malcolm in the Middle, but this is 2000. So I was a little surprised that they went right to that as opposed to, I don't know, it was weird, you know?
But that theme song, it had, like, all these little, like, the lyrics for it were so perfectly written because they perfectly apply to the show, like... and it just had that Malcolm in the Middle sound to it, to where as soon as it started up, like, you knew exactly which show they were referencing.
Yeah, just the way it was filmed, the music, and then during the episode itself, like when the characters were talking to each other, you could hear the music in the background, you know, like that weird cheesy music and shit. And then as soon as
guitar riffs.
Yeah, exactly. And then when the episode starts, when you get the narration from the two kids. Now, I thought it was just Malcolm, but they did both boys here, right?
Yeah, which felt... I mean, I think in Malcolm in the Middle, it's possible there was a scene or two where some of the other characters might have talked to the camera, but it was mostly Malcolm. But because, you know, they're twins, it worked better to have both of them breaking the fourth wall, which that's another thing, breaking the fourth wall, like... It's almost as if they were talking straight to the sword agents.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that was the first time I think they've done that so far in the WandaVision, not the show overall, but like in her little mini show, right? I don't think they've done that yet.
Yeah. It's nuts. There's so many levels you can read to this stuff.
Yeah, no, I thought that was cool. And then I thought you were talking about, when you said broke the fourth wall, obviously that, but I thought you were referencing when Pietro was talking to Wanda about, so like, like what's going on here? Like, you know, whatever. That was obviously a big point too later on in the episode. Like when he was asking her what was going on with everyone kind of being in the trance or whatever, and their personalities being close to what they actually were.
Yeah, Pietro has a much higher level of awareness to what's going on, which almost makes me wonder if what we're seeing is really Pietro or if it's somebody pretending to be Pietro.
I thought it might have been someone from S.W.O.R.D. or something, because it sounded like he was trying to get the lowdown on what was actually going on, but I don't think so, because they had no idea that he was going to be on the show, and then Darcy had said that he had been recasted. So, do you guys have any theories for who that could actually be if it's not Pietro?
If it's hard for me to think whether or not it's actually him, quote unquote, because there's also levels to who the him is, right? I think he might be dead Pietro reanimated, kind of like Vision.
Okay.
So and the whole rewriting reality is how they could explain why he looks different than the original Pietro. Mm-hmm. So if it's not him, ooh, it would be way out of the box if he was Mephisto or someone like that, who's trying to control her on that way. But he mentioned it and said, "You called out for me, so I got here." Yeah, she manifested him into her world
subconsciously.
Yeah, right.
What's funny though is, like, he said the last thing he remembered was being shot up in the street, which is clearly a reference to how Aaron Taylor Johnson's character was killed. Yeah. So it almost seems like maybe we're jumping to conclusions, assuming this is how they bridge the X-Men universe, because it almost feels like they're saying this isn't that Quicksilver. It's still our Quicksilver, but he's got this other face for a different reason we haven't told you yet.
Yeah, just kind of like recasting like any TV show would. Unless I missed something, they made no reference to the fact that this Quicksilver was from another universe, aside from the fact, because like you guys said, the last thing that he remembered was getting shot, and they did the Dead Vision thing that they did not last week, but 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, it was a while ago, when she looked over and saw Dead Vision, and then she looked back and he was fine. The same thing happened here when she saw the bullets in his chest. And then I skipped through it in the beginning. I kind of skipped through like the previously on WandaVision, blah, blah, blah. But didn't they show footage of Pietro dying in Ultron, in Age of Ultron, even though that was never on any of the episodes prior to this point?
They did, yes.
So, do you guys think there might have been a reason for that? Because I skipped through it, but I heard him say Ultron, though, which was from the movie, obviously. But do you think they picked that for a reason, and that maybe, going back to Phil's theory from a couple of weeks ago, that Ultron could be involved potentially?
I think there's definitely... I was sitting here thinking, when I was watching, I was like, okay, this even leads me even more to think, like, we're going to get some kind of other tie-in to Age of Ultron.
We have to.
If it's not Ultron, it has to be something else.
Yeah. There's got to be something else. Just because I don't know. I feel like they don't do this stuff for no reason. Like, I picked it up when they did that with The Mandalorian. They would always only recap things from either prior episodes or whatever that was going to be tied up or referenced again later on in the episode. So, something to keep an eye out for. But Chris and I were discussing before we had you guys jump on the call, before we started recording here, about the Agnes thing. Now, with, I think it was last week, or maybe it was the week before, they all kind of blend together at this point. With Norm, when he came out of the mind control, he was freaking out, then Vision put him back in the mind control. We saw that with Agnes on this episode, and they showed this as part of the promotional material when she said, "Oh, am I dead because you're dead," type thing. Do you guys think that she was faking that and orchestrating the whole thing? And Chris had brought up, the whole weird laugh and whatever at the end. Was she actually under the spell, or is she just completely aware of what's going on, but she's just going along with it?
I think it's a little bit of both. I get the feeling she knows more than she's putting on, but I can see that she might also be just like changed by the hex like everybody else.
What about you, Jeff?
I don't trust Agnes one bit. If she was shaking in any way, I have to see it. I have to see it. I have to see more evidence, because those sword agents do not have a file for her. So they did not identify her through facial recognition.
Yep.
So who are you? If you're not a sword agent and they couldn't identify you as being a resident of Westview, to our knowledge, who are you?
Mm-hmm.
It's conceivable she could have sat at that corner waiting for Vision and played it all off so that he would try to break out of the hex.
And that's a good point. Yeah.
Very plausible.
Yeah. I mean, she was specific. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I still think she killed the dog last week.
She had to have. They have to explain that. I mean, she had to have. The more I've seen people discuss it, and after what you guys said last week, there is absolutely no way that she didn't find the dog. Didn't she say that she was going to bury it before the kids came over so they didn't know about it or something? It was some weird-ass excuse.
Yeah. She tried to say he ate a bunch of leaves.
Oh, yeah, right.
She was going to bury him.
Yeah.
But I was like, yeah, I think she killed the dog.
That's bullshit. That's bullshit.
Well, that's kind of what I was saying with, like, I think she did, if she killed the dog, it's because Wanda didn't want the dog around. And Agnes kind of seems to be either consciously or subconsciously doing the things that Wanda needs, whether it's bringing her a doghouse, getting her a 5-course meal for Vision's boss, killing a dog, distracting Vision at a, like, so we now know that the boundary was called Ellis Avenue or something like that, which, I mean, that could be a reference to a couple of different things. Ellis was the name of the president in Iron Man 3 and Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But also there is an artist named Steve Ellis who does a lot of covers for Marvel, including stuff for Wanda and Vision. So it could have been a double thing or it could have been just one. I don't know. But, like, she was right there at the border. So she could have been there to potentially distract Vision and, you know, make him turn around, but she didn't seem to do enough to get him to not go towards the boundary. So I'm not sure if that's necessarily true, but she's always there when Wanda needs her. So yeah, she could have killed that dog.
She definitely killed the dog, and like you guys were saying, I feel like the placement of the car was definitely intentional because she was parked at the stop sign, and it was only after, unless I misinterpreted this, it was only after he looked at the stop sign that he realized that there's probably more to Westview than he thinks, which is why he kind of walks past the barrier or the part of the Westview that cuts off, or whatever you want to call it. Why didn't anyone from S.W.O.R.D. help him? And then Monica did, but they cut her off. Why didn't anyone help him? That was what I was confused by.
What are they going to do to help a guy who's being magically torn apart, who's made of vibranium? Like, what do? You can't give him CPR.
Yeah.
Yeah. Was he being torn apart?
Like it was a weapon, too.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was being ripped up as he was struggling to get free of it. Like, you could see little pieces of him getting sucked back into it before it collapsed.
Yeah, this still feels like the heel turn from last week. I still feel like...
For Hayward you're talking about?
I feel like Hayward did some very heelish things this episode.
It's a slow burning heel turn, but you know it's happening. He's just a complete asshole of a character. There's no way that he's not. I'm not saying he's the big bad, but there's definitely more to that. But when he,
I'm just gonna throw this out there. Hayward is an anagram for We Hydra.
I've seen people throw weird things around with his name. Like, his name is the same amount of letters as Hexagon.
Okay, that's interesting.
Yeah, and that last name was also the last name of a Hydra agent from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Right, it was.
So there could be a connection there too.
Yeah, they're definitely going somewhere with this. I don't know if it's going to happen next episode or not. But go ahead.
Did you notice that when he was bringing the drone in that was still covered in her magic, it's a Stark drone?
Was there any significance that you think, or just random?
I mean, shit, Wanda doesn't exactly like the Stark logo.
Oh, that's a good point, yeah.
She may have freaked out a little more than she would have normally just because she saw, like, basically another Stark missile was about to kill her, like...
Didn't they make that clear? Didn't they say when they were running down their history an episode or two ago that it was specifically a Stark missile that killed the parents? Didn't they mention that specifically?
They may have. But like, we talked about it from Ultron too. Like she said that, they were staring at a Stark missile for 2 days waiting for it to explode because they couldn't get out of the rubble of their building.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's big significance for her in the MCU.
Yeah. Yeah, just, I don't know, the way that he came across in this episode, it was weird because they didn't help him, but even before they didn't help him, was he still being torn apart? But I thought initially he was just trying to get to the barrier and then they weren't helping him. I thought even before they didn't help him, he still wasn't being torn apart before that eventually started happening, if that makes sense.
I mean, it seemed like it was painful for him, and then just as time went on, it started to rip him apart. What I'm really curious about is, like, so I have kind of a new theory around the Hayward Hydra thing.
Mm-hmm.
I think all of this may be because Wanda, when she was talking to Pietro, and he's like, I'm not your husband. I'm not a stranger. You can talk to me. And she's like, I don't even know how all this started. I just felt so empty and alone. So I'm thinking that at some point she was manipulated into doing this by Hydra as a way to bring Vision back because they wanted to recreate the Mind Stone and potentially all of the Infinity Stones.
That's possible.
Because if you think about these commercials have each sort of been a reference to specific stones, right? So the Hydra soap was obviously the Tesseract. It was a big blue box that was like a perfect square.
Mm-hmm.
The Lagos paper towels, that was supposed to be the ether. Or what was the ether called? The red stone?
The red stone,
Which one was?
The reality stone. The reality stone.
Yeah. Okay. And then in this one, the Go Magic stuff. So that was the creepiest commercial we've seen, right? A little kid wasting away on an island. So I felt like that was clearly referencing the citizens of the town who were on the border, and it seemed like Wanda's control over them was minimal, so they were just like standing in place or repeating minor tasks.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, how are they eating? How are they sustaining themselves? Like and you see that one woman like shed a single tear, like she's clearly just miserable. So it seemed like that was referencing these people, like they feel like they're stuck on an island wasting away because they can't do anything unless Wanda's magic allows them to.
That was my question. So if they're not in the episode, for example, if Wanda's not interacting with these people, then they're not doing anything at all for the most part, right? Because that's what Vision sees, like when he sees the woman doing her laundry or whatever she's doing outside. She's trying to clip something. She just keeps doing the same thing over and over. Or the woman with her kid, she's just standing there. So it's like none of these people are affected unless they're on the show, right? Like a video game type shit.
Yeah, maybe. That's what it looked like.
Yeah.
Yeah, that I watched Iron Man 3 this weekend, and when you guys said Ellis, I popped because I noticed this weekend that Ellis was Tommy's dad from Power. Have you guys watched Power?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I was like, man, get Thomas Patrick Egan. And
That's funny.
I mean, he played the president on Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. too.
Yeah, see? But yeah, I thought it was genius to go with a yogurt commercial this week because it just totally fits that time period.
It does. The whole animation part of it too did too.
Oh yeah, so many of those kids' snack commercials were like extreme, and it was some animal mascot shoving something in their face. It was perfect. Yeah, they nailed the aesthetic in this episode.
Yeah, no, it was perfect, and I love the Halloween theme too. It was random, and we had to get some sort of holiday episode at some point, and Christmas is always the go-to. But every show has a Halloween episode as well, so I thought that was perfect.
Oh shit! Let's talk about the costumes. What did you guys think of the comic accurate costumes being brought into play?
Yeah, I thought it was cool. I mean, I immediately popped when Billy came down. He had his Wiccan costume on.
Mm-hmm.
That one immediately got me. Of course, we get like Tommy had like his Speed quote unquote costume on when Quicksilver changed into Quicksilver. But I thought it was cool. I thought it was a cool nod to comics. It was another one I noticed I forgot about. Having Agnes dressed as a witch clearly is intentional.
Yeah, of course, yeah.
It almost feels like they're doing that so we keep thinking it's Agatha Harkness, but it's not. Like, I think that's a red herring, don't you?
That's what I was wondering, too.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure what to make of the Agnes stuff at the moment. But yeah, I thought the costumes were great. The whole bit where Vision was like, "This is the only clothes I had in my closet," so, and then they immediately did a Malcolm in the Middle-esque like PDA scene, which I was like, that was perfect.
Oh, and Vision saying that his costume was a Mexican wrestler. Come on, I know all four of us popped for that.
Yes. Or the Kick-Ass reference, wasn't that the same scene?
That was a little later when they were out trick-or-treating, and she's like, okay, you guys can run, just don't go past Ellis Street or whatever, and Pietro's like, kick ass, and then she repeats it. That was a fun reference, because Aaron Taylor Johnson and Evan Peters, the two Quicksilvers, were both in Kick-Ass.
Oh, interesting. I didn't know. That definitely was a reference, and it had to have been intentional.
Absolutely.
Oh, that's what's up.
Oh, that's pretty cool. Were there any more references that you guys noticed that we didn't pick up on yet from this episode?
Oh, tons. The movie theater. So, first of all, what movie theater is showing a movie from 1996 and a movie from 2004?
Right.
Yeah.
So you got The Parent Trap. It's about two twins trading places. Clearly a reference to what's going on with Pietro.
Mm-hmm.
Then you got The Incredibles, a superhero family. It's like those references were on the ball, but that actually made me think back to the first episode when they're in the square. I went back and watched. The movie theater is there. There's two movies on the screen. One is called Big Red and one is called Kidnapped. Both movies are real and made by Disney in the 60s.
Oh, wow. That's cool.
So, yeah, there's a lot of stuff here.
Interesting. Yeah, no, it seems like... Did you notice that from watching the first time? Did you go back and see that on like the second or third time you watched this episode?
The first time I watched this morning, which was like 2:15 in the morning for me, because I was still awake. So I was like, you know what, screw it, I'm watching it live. And I looked and saw that, so I was like, oh, well, there's probably this movie theater like is visible in the other scene that takes place in Times Square. I wonder if there's references there. So I went back and watched that scene, and sure enough. And then Big Red and Kidnapped, that almost seems like another reference specifically to Wanda. All these people are kidnapped by Big Red.
Oh, yeah.
Scarlet Witch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Show's got levels, man.
Levels. I assume by this point you guys have had the formula down as to not get spoiled ahead of time, right? By looking on Twitter or social media just in general?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I didn't even log in until I watched, and I didn't watch until early afternoon. I'm not playing with them.
I love how your Malcolm in the Middle tweet didn't actually specify what you were talking about. That's
exactly.
Anything.
The Fuse TV account like retweeted me, and I'm like, I guess Malcolm in the Middle is about to be shown on Fuse because I ain't get it. But you know, I had a couple of people hit me up and say, I know exactly what you're doing. I'm like, yes, you get it. You get me.
I think the new thing is just posting spoilers from the episode without context or without the hashtag. So, I mean, or you could just do, Chris, what you did. You could just post spoilers that aren't actually spoilers and have absolutely nothing to do with the show. But you know what I mean?
Yeah. I just felt like being an asshole this morning, so I was like, WandaVision spoilers. It was crazy when, what did I say, when Batman and who showed up?
You said, not Logos. It was something like that. Not Lagos. That's from the episode. It's something like that.
Yeah, I love those type of spoilers because people get pissed and you're like, read it again. Just read it again.
Oh, yeah. I said it's crazy when Batman showed up with Legolas and killed the Dementors. But yeah. Sorry, go ahead, Phil.
Was I the only one screaming at the TV when Vision started walking towards the hex and going, "No, don't go out of the hex, you're gonna die"? I kept saying it like, "Don't go out of the hex, you're going to die." So when he started going out of it, it started tearing him apart. I was like, "Yeah, he's definitely dead."
I thought he was just going to walk through the hex, and this would probably be just anticlimactic. I thought he was just going to collapse into a dead body right then and there, because he doesn't technically exist outside of Westview, so I was wondering why they were doing that, but then his body got pulled back in. That was the last that we saw of him, right? That was where the episode ended, was when he got pulled apart piece by piece?
He was on the floor when the hex expanded.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
He was reconstituted at 100%.
Gotcha.
It pulled back, but I don't know. I'm kind of. I don't mean to pun, but I am kind of torn between thinking whether or not him breaking apart was interacting with the real world and actually disassembling, or was Wanda's world pulling him back in piece by piece?
Yeah, I wondered the same thing, because she reinforced that barrier so like nothing could get in or out. Was he being torn apart just because the barrier is so strong, or because he shouldn't exist?
Right.
I was wondering the same thing.
I thought it was the latter, because he shouldn't exist.
Yeah.
Could be either, man.
Yeah. That's the thing.
It very well could be. The only reason I think he's actually dead is because I feel like that wasn't a throwaway line last episode for her to basically say she can't affect life and death. And I think if she could have brought him back to life, we would have known by now. Like, I think they would have made some kind of reference to it.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Unless that was a red herring. I don't know.
I mean, here's the thing. Vision isn't a person. He's an android. He's all digital. And Wanda can clearly affect things on a subatomic level to make them change or just exist in general. Vision might not necessarily follow the same laws of her powers as the dog. I mean, bringing him back is nothing more than recreating the missing parts.
Yeah. It's just certain stuff, like, of course, him saying, what is an Avenger? I was like, oh, he doesn't know any of his memories beyond being in a bubble at all.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but he doesn't even remember his creation at all.
I don't know. What about you, Jeff? What do you think?
He doesn't remember anything past of his Avengers time or at all. And Pietro, the last thing he remembers is being killed.
Yeah.
So I think what's ever happening to Vision is happening to Pietro. So if Vision is actually dead, and I think Pietro may still be dead, and whatever is happening in the Hex is what's brought them back to life.
During the opening sequence, when they're like in the Malcolm in the Middle, obviously inspired opening, when they're saying like, "Oh, Wanda as whoever," unless I missed it, and they all said as themselves. For Pietro specifically, it said Pietro Maximoff as himself. I just thought that was weird. Did they do that with everyone else, or was that just him?
That was just him.
Yep. Yeah, and some sitcoms will do that with like specific characters who are temporary. So it'll be like guest starring so and so as blah blah blah, and it'll be like credited separately almost from the rest of the cast. So it's like, were they doing that just to reference how sitcoms sometimes credit people, or is it actually meaningful?
Maybe, but it's not like they put guest starring Pietro Maximoff. It said as himself. That was the weird thing,
Yeah.
It might just be a quirk in the show just to pay homage to sitcoms, or it could be a double meaning. It's the beauty of this whole series. We don't know until we know.
Exactly. We have no clue. What was...
Oh,
go ahead, sorry.
So there was another reference here. So like, I want to talk about the stuff with Darcy outside for a minute.
Yep.
So, first of all, we got to see Wu be a badass for a second. That was awesome.
I was not expecting that. Was that the only physical action he's ever had in any Marvel movie up to this point? I think it was.
Yeah, and it's the only, like, physical fighting we've seen in the show, really, too.
Yeah, it's true. Yeah, no, that took me by surprise.
So, when we see Darcy, like, hacking into the system and stuff, so the first thing we'll talk about, she mentions how Monica was physically changed on a molecular level twice.
Yes, I forgot to mention that.
So,
yeah.
this is clearly setting her up to either become Photon or
Spectrum,
or one of her Spectrum, like one of her comic book counterparts.
Mm-hmm.
But then we see Darcy later on. She's like hacking into the computer, and she scans over a few files before she clicks on Monica's.
Mm-hmm.
So of course, I paused the screen to see what each one of those files said.
Of course.
Three of them were like random serial numbers, like C4-113. So I Googled each one of these serial numbers because I'm a huge nerd. One of them they're all serial numbers for items you can buy.
Okay.
One of them is a miter saw, which is like a tool.
Mm-hmm.
Another one is a water circulation pump, and then another one is a hatch gasket for like a submarine hatch.
Yeah.
So I don't know if any of those actually are significant. They could have just been filler material, but the only name on a file other than Monica Rambeau's was Ray Johnson. And I looked it up. It doesn't seem like there's any character or person associated with Marvel named Ray Johnson, but there was a famous artist in the 1900s named Ray Johnson who apparently committed suicide he was seen during the day driving off a bridge.
Mm-hmm.
And then when he got into the ocean, like he survived the fall, and he just backstroked out into the ocean until he died.
Oh God.
And then when they went to his house, they found like a series of very elaborately staged collages he had made, and he was a collage artist, I guess. So I don't know if somebody on the Marvel staff is just a big fan of this artist and the mystery surrounding his death, because I guess like somehow his death keeps linking to the number 13
mm-hmm.
in different ways. But yeah, so I thought it was interesting that there was just one name besides Monica's on these files, and it has nothing to do with an existing Marvel character.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm surprised, honestly, that was placed in this show and not Loki, because I feel like Loki would deal with more of that type of stuff.
Yeah, because there's like, I don't know, it's not like a mystery surrounding his death, like he clearly committed suicide, but I guess it's just one of those weird stories. Like, I think it's even been made into a movie or something.
Oh, yeah, I never heard of it. I thought you were talking about, for a second when you said Ray Johnson, I thought you were referencing Ray William Johnson, the old YouTuber from like 10 years ago or some shit like that.
But did any of you guys notice anything else in those scenes, like in the Sword headquarters or with those guys?
I didn't notice anything with the files, but I immediately noticed when she pointed it out to Monica, and Monica didn't look surprised, and then she said, yeah, I've seen the blood work, cells have been, and, what did she say, in remission?
Yeah, remission,
yeah. Remission, yeah. Talking about her mom.
Yeah, that's what I figured, yeah.
Yeah, but it just makes me think that she still knows more about her physiology than she's letting on. Something about it just tells me that.
Hayward made some weird reference to her history with Captain Marvel, too.
Yeah, they mentioned Carol Danvers again. I mean, she didn't react the same way that she did in the last episode, but there's got to be... I don't know if she's going to make a cameo at some point, but that has to be explained at some point, right?
Yeah. It makes me wonder, is the next Captain Marvel movie going to be similar to Wonder Woman 1984, and it's going to be a prequel?
It could be.
I hope not.
I could. Well, I mean, there's so much time that takes place between, because that first one was from when, 95, mid 90s, so
right. But they already sped up in Endgame, So we're in their modern time, right? And I think they just unless they flash back to whatever the hell she was doing in space for 20 years, that it may be a flashback, but I don't think they're gonna do a prequel.
That's what I thought it was. I thought it would just be another movie of her talking about, or whatever, her space adventures or whatever, and they would bring back Ronan. Now, I know he died in Guardians, but it seemed like they were setting him up and the other guy whose name I don't remember who didn't die in Captain Marvel that portrayed her or whatever. I felt like the second movie would be about that, and it would take place. I don't know. I would prefer an up-to-date movie, but it seems like there's so much time in between the first and second, or, present day, that they can explain what she was up to in the meantime. Even though we know that she's not going to die or whatever, but I don't know. They have yet to confirm that, so I'm not sure.
There's no stakes in a prequel. We know she's going to survive. I just don't want them to do it.
I wouldn't be opposed to it, but I feel like we're literally getting that like in a month or whenever it's supposed to come out with Black Widow. I just don't want to see them do a lot of prequels. I feel like if they weren't doing Black Widow, I would be more open to it. But I feel like the whole prequel shit, just keep it to like a very minimum, and then just move on. Like, I just want to see present day stuff personally.
At least with Black Widow, like, it feels like they did that as a thank you to Scarlett Johansson and as a way of being like, we fucked up and should have given you your own movie when your character was still alive. But I also think they're not putting anything in the marketing that makes me think this, but I feel like something important is going to happen in the Black Widow movie that affects something major. Like I think the movie could be bookended by scenes in the present day with maybe the other girl, Florence Pugh. Like, I think she's kind of slated to sort of take over that role. So I think she'll be around in Marvel for a little while.
That's what I figured.
And I'm almost wondering if maybe the movie will open with a memorial scene for her, and she's attending the memorial scene and talks to some of the Avengers about her, like, tells a story to them about, and like that's what the movie is her recalling something that she did with Scarlett. But I feel like something in that movie is going to have major significance.
I was thinking that too, but it depends how significant, because it is interesting that it was supposed to kick off Phase 4. I mean, why would they have a kick off Phase 4 if it's a random... I mean, not random prequel. It was a movie that people have been asking for a long time. But the placement was very odd. So there's got to be some sort of significance there. And I know it's no longer kicking off Phase 4 because we have WandaVision now. So I don't know if it's going to affect everything overall. Like, WandaVision is more... significant in that it's probably going to kick off a multiverse, obviously lead into Doctor Strange 2, probably set the stage for the Spider-Man stuff. Black Widow probably won't. I can definitely see it setting up Florence Pugh's character coming back for more stuff. I just don't know how significant. And I don't want to see Tony Stark show up. I know that was rumored at one point. He literally just died. It's got to be something big, but it can't be... I don't see it being big enough to where they would move it. I feel like if it was big enough and they really wanted to have a kickoff Phase 4, they would have just released it on Disney Plus already. But it doesn't sound like that's going to happen. And it sounds like, if anything, they might just move it back again to, like, November.
Oh, God.
And it was supposed to come out last May.
I do think something significant is going to happen, but I also think these publishers are trying to make as much money as they can given the situations. And if they were to do, the only thing they could do as a compromise is the HBO Max type deal where it releases overseas in theaters and domestically for X amount of days on the streaming service.
Yeah.
Because they still want to recoup the money that they spent on Black Widow and the other movies that they have in tuck. Mm-hmm. I don't think any of those other movies are going to release... I know Sony ain't releasing it on streaming for Spider-Man, so they're figuring it out. But I don't think they would have a Black Widow solo movie set as a prequel for the hell of it. I don't think so, because I don't even think at her height Black Widow was a popular enough character to garner a fuck it film, you know. So something has to be setting up the future. in that prequel.
Just the timing is so weird that they would release it. I mean, it was supposed to come out last May, so if it came out last May, it would have come out a year after she died. So it just feels like maybe the time to do it would have been in the Captain Marvel slot right before Infinity War, but they had to introduce Captain Marvel to kind of make for that to make sense. And not before Infinity War, before Endgame. So I don't know. The timing is weird. I just don't want to see it bump back another 6 months. But like you said, Jeff, I don't know if they could do it. You said overseas, but can they even release it over, like, in China, for example? Because I think that's their biggest market for, like, the Marvel movies, isn't it?
Right. I have no clue how the overseas market is operating right now.
Yeah.
I think a lot of those countries are back to business as usual, at least at a certain capacity. So if China's open to show movies, they're going to release it in China.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know if they are. I mean, again, I haven't followed it too closely either. I was just curious because it sounds like I thought they were still, like, closed in terms of, like, releasing movies over there, but I could be wrong. So I guess we'll find out. But one thing I forgot to mention for you guys from this episode, what was with the clown stuff at the end? Why was Westview, when it expanded, then it turned into a clown show? Is that supposed to be like an inside joke or something?
I don't know. Like, I just took it as, like, she was expanding the barrier, and anything she replaced had to be something, so she made that whole area into a circus, and, like, the big tent that they were using just turned into one of their, circus tents. So it was just a perfect setting to convert anything they needed. That's what I was taking it as.
Yeah, I read it as just a coincidence.
Dude, and what about that dick who just left Darcy to get sucked into the thing?
Yeah.
Just left her handcuffed to a Jeep? What an asshole.
What happened to Darcy? We didn't see what happened to her.
Yeah.
Hex.
Oh, that's something I wanted to bring up, actually. So you guys, I assume, saw a lot of that marketing stuff that they released with all the character posters and stuff like that, right?
I didn't.
No, I didn't see that either.
Yeah, Marvel's Twitter account and Instagram, they were releasing all sorts of WandaVision character posters leading up to the show. And the one with Darcy, because you know how there's the picture of all the TVs, and then Wanda and Vision are sort of standing behind them, and on the TVs you see a little bit of Wanda and Vision's real outfits.
Oh, yeah,
right.
yeah, on Disney Plus.
So there's other pictures of that with other characters. Monica's, oddly enough, it looks like her Spectrum costume that she's wearing behind the TVs, and then the TVs show her costume from the episode.
Okay.
But with Darcy,
mm-hmm.
the TV that's in front of her is showing a picture of a sweater with kind of a strange design, and it just looks like it could be anything random. But I saw a thing this morning from some Marvel fan account or whatever that showed a picture of that side by side with a character called Deathcry. Apparently the pattern on her sweater is like identical to the pattern that's like tattooed on Deathcry's face. And
mm-hmm.
Deathcry is a Shi'ar warrior, so she's one of the aliens from one of the races we really haven't met. So I don't know if that's actually a reference to Deathcry or if it's just a funky looking sweater, but yeah, I'd encourage you to look those pictures up on the Marvel like Twitter or Instagram, because there's a lot of cool little Easter eggs in those pictures when you like piece them together.
That's probably why they do it, I feel like.
Yeah. Their social accounts killed it with the marketing for this, because the pictures all like pieced together to make another picture. It was really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Marvel almost always nails it in that respect. I haven't followed like the trailers too closely, and I think you, Chris, have seen them more than I have before each episode is released, but do you guys think that they release a little too much before the episodes come out, or do you think they release just enough to get you excited for them?
I think they put it out for people that just are impatient and they want to see something.
There's a lot of people like that, yeah.
I mean, after every episode, I have to look at several tweets of, how do we wait for next week? I don't know, the same way we had every week. Like, why are we still complaining about having to wait every week now? It's like, you guys know it's going to be a new episode every week now. It's okay. You don't have to binge it.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't really have a problem with their marketing either. I think they did what had to be done. I don't think anything they did spoiled what they had.
Yeah.
Right. Spoiled the show at all. I couldn't, just from reading comics, I could theorize what's happening. But some of these twists, I had no clue. And even the mid-season trailer they released, still didn't have no clue. Just saw Halloween costumes and said, we might be getting something there.
Yeah.
And there's still more questions. So,
right.
You know.
I mean, you have the choice not to watch the trailers. It's not like they put it all out there where you have to watch it. Yeah. Like, I didn't even watch the trailers.
Neither did I. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, I don't know, because it seemed like in one of them, because again, they've shown this Halloween stuff for, I feel like they showed a clip of this during the Super Bowl last year. Like, that's, it's crazy to think that a lot of these episodes have been in the can for that long, and they're only just releasing them now. I don't know if they had to finish it during COVID, or they just purposely chose not to release it earlier. I'm not sure.
What's nuts is, like, if you think about it, this Evan Peters stuff happened, the Fox deal. Like, they moved quick.
So when did the Fox deal close? Was that early 2020 or late 2019?
Like early to mid 2020, I think.
Okay.
But it also was announced.
Well, it was announced in 2019.
Yeah.
But it didn't go into effect until last year. Is that correct?
It went into effect in March of 2019.
Oh, okay. Oh.
So it's been 2 years.
Wow.
Yeah. But like
with a lot of mergers, once they make the announcement to merge, right?
Yeah.
They start building on the back end. Companies start developing processes, meeting with their counterparts from the other companies, and start a light integration with the anticipation that they're going to be one. And then, of course, if it blows up, then they have to, shut down operations and do whatever. But they've been preparing since they announced this was going to happen.
I mean, they had to have been. I mean, especially since Marvel is so good at mapping things out. Specifically, like with the X-Men and Fantastic Four, they say they're not doing it for a while, but for a fact that we're going to get some sort of a tease. I mean, we're already getting Pietro and this Quicksilver in MCU this early. I'm kind of surprised by that, regardless of whether it's the actual same Quicksilver or not from that universe. But they're already mapping that stuff out years in advance, and they already know when they're going to introduce those characters and I'm sure it just hasn't been spoiled yet. Like, we just have no idea.
Yeah, that also made me think, like, they did use Pietro, but they still made no reference to mutants. No. And his memories being from Age of Ultron kind of tells me it's not a tie-in to X-Men like we thought it would be.
It could still be, probably not, but one thing I completely forgot to ask you guys was that on this episode, and again, I may have misheard it, but did he not make a reference to the fact that that Vision was dead? That Vision had died too? Yeah. So how would he know that if he had already died? He died well before Vision did, so how would he know that?
Good point.
Yeah, I mean, he clearly is more aware than anybody else, so I don't know.
I mean, that just has to prove that he's not actually Pietro. I mean, that's got to be the proof right there.
Yeah, he said a few things that I wasn't sure on, that it seemed like he happened after his death, and how would he know that?
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
The Wanda, or the unnamed redheaded sister from the X-Men universe, was like a much younger sister to him.
Yeah, they weren't actual twins.
And he didn't question that at all here whatsoever.
Yeah, maybe whatever happened, if it's Pietro, maybe somehow the two versions merged, because he also recalled something from their childhood at Halloween, where, by the way, he was dressed as Nick Fury.
Oh, that's
Did
cool.
You see that?
Yes.
I don't know what Wanda was supposed to be, a bug or something. Like she had little antennas on her head. I don't know, but she's like, I don't remember it that way. And he's like, oh, you probably just suppressed the trauma. And it's like that line right there has a million ways you could read that. But does she not remember it that way because some of his memories are different because he's like the two Pietros merged together, which is something that they've done in comics. They've merged different versions of characters into one.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Yeah. Now I'm curious. Sorry, what was that, Phil?
No, I was just saying right, and I'm just wondering. I don't know. I'm still not sure on Pietro. Like, I'm not sure if this is like the Pietro from the X-Men universe that came to this universe, or if it's all just like a Hex-related illusion.
I mean, it kind of has to.
I don't think he's from the quote unquote Fox. I think that whole universe is going to be overhauled. But yeah, and here's the loophole, the interesting loophole with this whole mutant situation. Wanda and Pietro have been retconned to be humans, to be superpowered humans, not mutants. So in the comics right now, Wanda and Pietro are more Avenger than X-Men. They're not mutants. They're not children of Magneto. And Wanda is looked at like the devil to every mutant on Earth because she she caused M-Day, right? So that loophole, that new reality can be brought into the Disney Plus and the MCU verse. So if you separate them as quote unquote mutants, then he could become an entirely different person that just so happens to be Pietro.
Right.
So that's one thing. And the other thing is he was becoming one of those sitcom tropes of the character who has more knowledge than you would think. Think Zach Morris in Saved by the Bell, or even Malcolm from Malcolm in the Middle.
Yeah,
he knows more going on with the world and breaks the fourth wall than every other character in the show. And there's still other characters who know what the hell is going on, but is going with it. Like Herb. Herb knows. Herb is an actor within Wanda's world.
Yeah.
But we don't know who he is, or does he have the ultimate knowledge of who he is and he's just going with this so that he don't get wished away to the cornfield or whatever. Right? So people, there's precedence for these residents to have more awareness. And Pietro comes into it with that awareness. So it literally 5 different ways this can go.
Did we ever see who was in the hazmat suit that they sent in there? And
no,
they never showed him again?
He'd been gone.
We never found out what happened to that guy. Like, I'm assuming she rewound time, and that just means he never went into the hole. But it's like, did she rewind time just inside the sphere and everybody outside was fine? Because if that's the case, that dude's just gone now.
He might have just disappeared. Sorry, go ahead, Phil.
No, I was just, I just thought about that just now. Like, did we ever see that guy again?
Another thing that kind of went unanswered in this episode that I was interested by was that whenever someone leaves or enters Westview, they have the siren go off at where the sword, where they set up camp and whatever. We heard that siren at the end of last week's episode when we see Pietro show up at the front door. Now, I thought they would explain that he must have entered Westview, or that someone was coming back from Westview, but we never actually found out what that siren was for, unless it was for something completely different altogether.
Wasn't it for Wanda?
I thought it was for Pietro, because they were saying something's entering the Hex.
Yes.
Maybe he's fast enough to break through her stuff?
But maybe, but if he entered Westview... I mean, wouldn't it have to be the X-Men Pietro? Because it's not the other Pietro because he's dead.
we also now know that Hayward somehow has an ability to see in the hex, like he's got that digital readout and apparently has an accurate head count. Maybe the alarm just went off because all of a sudden there was an extra body in the town.
Yeah, maybe so.
Yeah.
By the way, how's he seeing in this now? Like, what kind of technology does he have that he didn't share with the group, as Monica said?
What if he has a tracker in vision?
Maybe. Sword was doing some kind of experiment on him when Wanda took his body back, dissecting him or whatever you want to call it. Like, it's... Oh, and she actually mentioned he was tracking the decay signature of vibranium. That's how he was tracking specifically Vision in there.
I mean, there has to be, because they were kind of framing it as if she was, when we saw the footage of her breaking in and taking Vision's body back, they kind of framed it as like she was the villain in that scenario, that she shouldn't have done that or whatever. But there has to be more to it. And I mean, we kind of talked about it last week, that they were doing work on Vision's body. Are we going to come to find out that they were doing something more significant with him, where maybe they're using him? Again, I go back to Ultron, because Phil, you have that set in my mind now after you said that a couple weeks ago. I can't forget about Ultron. I don't know, why would they bring him back? I don't know. There's definitely got to be some sort of big reveal here as far as that goes.
Yeah, well, I mean, rule number one in anything related to Marvel and anything government related is don't trust the big government agency. So them having Vision already is a big red flag for me. Like, why would they have Vision's body? Why would they be dissecting it? They have to be looking for something, or they have to be finding a way to try and use him in a way that he wouldn't agree with. So I would be surprised if there is a tracker in Vision, and that's how they found him. But, I mean, and even like the video they showed of her breaking in, they very much only showed it to a certain extent because, again, government agency, only show you what we want you to see.
Exactly.
So I wouldn't be surprised if Hayward knows more than he's putting on about that whole situation.
Yeah. There has to be.
I'm starting to think that, like, I don't know if the anagram thing I mentioned actually means anything, but I'm starting to think that, like, he is somehow the one pulling Wanda's strings. Like, he manipulated her into doing this so they could resurrect Vision, either to use Vision as a weapon or to see if she could create a new Mind Stone. And if she can create the rest, probably.
Mm-hmm.
But
have you guys noticed that all of her powers are related to a Infinity Stone? Like, being able to alter reality, being able to rewind time, mind control.
Oh, wow, that's a great pickup. I didn't notice that.
Yeah, I mean, she was created by an Infinity Stone in this universe, and it showed her, like, clearly able to destroy an Infinity Stone when she destroyed the one in Vision before Thanos turned it back. Like, she is confirmed the most powerful character in Marvel right now. Like, there's so little that she's been shown that she can't do.
I'm glad they confirmed that back on episode 4 or whatever it was when they said that she could have killed Thanos all on her own, because I think we were all thinking that, but they never actually said it until that moment. So I'm glad we got confirmation on that.
Oh yeah, like, she had him up in the air. She was squeezing the life out of him and would have crushed him had he not sent a bunch of missiles flying down and happened to hit one close to her.
Yeah,
that air raid was his limit break, because he was out of here. when he had to activate the limit break real quick, because that would have been the end of
his own soldiers at all.
I didn't give a shit. One final question for you guys before we wind down here, kind of going off of what we were talking about previously, as far as whether there be a big bad or something like that, but I think there was an interview that either Elizabeth Olsen or God, who plays Vision? I'm an idiot. Paul Bettany. Yeah, thank you guys. That one of them did in the last week. I think it was Elizabeth Olsen who had said that there is like that Luke Skywalker moment, and people thought it was Pietro, and there's Evan Peters as Pietro, and there's a decent chance that it might have been. One, that was in the middle of the season, and two, they said that whoever this person was, that I think Paul Bettany had said that he'd always wanted to work with, though that could be a lie, that they had kept it under wraps and they haven't seen it spoiled anywhere. Now, Evan Peters was rumored like literally last summer. Whoever this person is, I guess, has not been rumored or spoiled at all at this point as of mid-February 2021. So, Chris, I'll start with you. Do you have any speculation or thoughts for anyone that hasn't been rumored yet? I mean, obviously, Doctor Strange is probably the most likely answer, but beyond him, is there anyone that you would either like to see or do you think could fill that role of being the big surprise cameo at the end of this season?
I mean, I had speculated Fassbender last week, and I'm rethinking that a little, but it would still be cool.
I think it'd still be for a great moment,
As far as somebody who's not been rumored but would be a major get, I mean, fuck, maybe Elizabeth Olsen was like being cute with it, and maybe Mark Hamill is actually coming in to play somebody.
Could you imagine?
I mean, hell, man, he's already done his tenure with DC as the best Joker ever.
Is this how we get Star Wars in the MCU?
God, no, let's not. So, apparently people have been asking Kevin Feige about that, like, oh, are we going to get a Disney Star? And he's said, like, yeah, don't expect that anytime soon. Like, let's not mix those two universes. They're perfectly fine on their own. We don't need everything to be connected.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need Moana and Cinderella showing up in the next Iron Man or whatever.
Leave that shit to Wreck-It Ralph.
Oh, man. But, there is one other thing I wanted to mention. So, apparently the official name for the barrier or whatever we want to call this bubble is the cataract.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Didn't they say that on the show? Yeah. They wrote it down somewhere.
Yeah, it was on one of the computer screens somewhere.
Right.
I think Darcy may have had a throwaway line like, oh, he's calling it the cataract now.
Yeah. It was on her laptop, yeah.
We all know, the cataract eye condition, but the cataract was also the name of one of the levels in Marvel vs. Capcom, and the level that it took place in was based in the Savage Lands. The Savage Lands is one of the places associated with the High Evolutionary, who is a lot of people speculated that Herb was playing that character. So all of this may be nothing, but I would mention it just because it was tangentially relevant.
It could be. It's probably just an Easter egg, but again, I think like Jeff said earlier, you don't know until we know. So we have no idea. It could very well be, but I'm glad you said that because what if it is? And then you're proven right. So you can't be, you're never actually fully wrong. Because if anything, it's just an Easter egg,
Yeah, I mean, and it could also just be that they called it that because, a cataract is a condition that basically covers your eye with a layer that you can't see through, and that's what this bubble essentially is now for them.
Yeah.
Although, apparently he can see through it, and that's another reason why I think maybe he's part of the reason this is all happening, and he's somehow able to track what's going on.
Yeah, no, that's pretty likely.
But he also seemed a little surprised that Vision wanted to get out of the town, didn't he? He's like, wow, he really does want to get out of there.
Yeah, he did say that. He said something along those lines.
So, I don't know. This show just makes you... This show is like... This is... I don't want to tie this to conspiracy theories, but, like, you get so many theories in your head that, like, some of them are so ridiculous that you hope it's not true, and some of them are so ridiculous that you hope are true, and it's like, is this the Disney QAnon? Like,
oh God,
it's just like your brain tries to make every connection it can, and you read into every line so much more than you should.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, like, that's one of the reasons I love this show, is just because it makes you think about a million different possibilities, and then still manages to surprise you with things you didn't think that they would do.
Yeah. Now, I think that's the beauty of the show, because I don't think any guess is too wild, and anything is possible. So, I mean, anything you want to speculate is fair game, really. What about you, Phil? Anyone that you think could show up that hasn't been rumored yet, that you either want to see or you think could happen? Is Ultron that person, or is it someone else?
Well, I mean, I didn't expect them to go back to the engineer thing. So I think the engineer is definitely going to show up. Mm-hmm. And I think the engineer has to be somebody that's a big name in the Marvel Universe. And so the short list in my head is, of course, Reed. He's an engineer. Mm-hmm. It could be Sue. Riri Williams is an engineer as well. Blue Marvel's an engineer. And so I'm just like, man, who out of them would make the most sense? And I'm like, it could easily be Reed, because Reed has like a relationship with Monica from her own comic. Mm-hmm. So that's my guess at the moment. Like, that's my guess. They're gonna put Reed in the show, and he might not be like Reed with powers or anything yet, but they might have already cast Reed, and we just didn't know.
Bonus question, if it is Reed, is it John Krasinski and we get a play off of him and Jimmy Woo from The Office?
Oh my God. I hope so.
That would be
great. Mean, John Krasinski almost played Captain America.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Yeah. Funnest of facts.
Shit.
That would have been a much different Captain America.
That's interesting. Well, he's not pegged to play Reed Richards, right? It's just someone that fans want to see play Reed Richards?
Fan cast, yeah.
Okay. I think that'd be sick. What about you, Jeff? What are you thinking?
I think y'all all named interesting people. I do think this engineer is going to reveal themselves by the end of the series, because Monica and Jimmy got out in time. Mm-hmm. While the Hex was expanding, but they had the wild head start, so they should be on their way to meet whoever the engineer is, and whoever this engineer is. Oh man, the possibilities are endless. And Phil listed all of the people I had on my chart. I can't think of anyone else who would be in the MCU with the knowledge, and we don't know age-wise who it is, mm-hmm. but just someone who's an aerospace engineer. It's endless who it can be. So I'm just keeping an open mind. I don't think it's going to be anybody else from the Fox universe at all. I don't think it's going to be any of those folks. But if it's someone that Paul Bettany said he didn't work with, or he would love to work with, I don't know if it's anybody that's been in the movies before. Yeah. So just process of elimination, figuring it out. It's got to be a new character that we haven't seen. That's going to make their appearance, their secret appearance, whenever, probably next week.
Yeah.
You think so? Next week?
Yeah. Well, I would figure next week they're going to meet the engineer.
Oh,
so
right, yeah.
I figure it should be next week, or if they're going to stretch it out until the final episode, who knows?
Next week is just the road trip before they meet the engineer with Jimmy and Monica, and then we don't meet the engineer until episode 8 or 9. But no, I think
it's going to be like Dragon Ball Z. It's going to take us 15 episodes just to get a mile.
So you're saying that completely writes off the possibility of either Patrick Stewart or Ian McKellen, right?
They're not going to use those two guys again. It's like, other than a fun flashback cameo or some random thing, Ian McKellen's in his 80s. Patrick Stewart's busy with his Star Trek show that they're doing. I don't think we're going to see those two guys in the MCU. I just say that just because the only thing that sticks with me is that Paul Bettany was so excited over whatever actor this is. So, like, if it was someone someone newer or younger, like, I don't think he would care as much. Like, he seemed really excited over whoever this person is, which is why I say those two, although it's not what I'm thinking. It's seen speculation, and this is why I just think it would be disappointing, because I mentioned Doctor Strange earlier, and someone had pointed out that
he and Vision had never actually shared the screen together because they didn't interact in Infinity War, and when Doctor Strange came back in Endgame, Vision was already dead. So I just feel like that's too obvious. That. You know, I don't know. I feel like that would fit the mold, and it hasn't been spoiled. Like, oh, they brought in Doctor Strange to do a cameo. It's like, we already know it's tying into the movie. So, I don't know. I just feel like that would be a massive disappointment. It would be cool, but very underwhelming, I think, if that's who it is.
So I'll tell you, there's one thing that would make me happy, and I don't think it would make anyone else but me happy. I want the engineer that she's going to go find
Don't
to
say
be
Howard
either
the Duck.
No, to be either Fitz or Simmons from
Wow.
Or both. I want Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to matter because I actually like it.
Well, it does matter. It was a solid show, and anybody who's listening who hasn't watched, you got the ultimate payoff if you stayed past the first season and kept watching. It got better and better and better. But wow, that is from the logo you pulled up.
I mean, nothing would make me happy.
That would be nuts.
Because, I mean, it would make sense that they would be working for S.W.O.R.D. now after all their S.H.I.E.L.D. escapades, right?
Right.
Yeah, it would make perfect sense.
Fury could have brought him in, you know?
I don't know if they were aerospace, though. But it felt like they did everything.
Yeah, they were the geniuses who could solve any problem. They figured out how to turn a plane into a spaceship. They figured out faster than light travel. They figured out time travel. It's literally like they are a Deus Ex Machina character by definition. Mm-hmm. Like, we need something fixed, get Fitzsimmons on it.
Right.
But that's what was great. Like, those two actors were so good in those roles, and I would just love to see them used in the MCU again, because Fitz especially, like, Fitz was just such a good character, and then, I mean, I don't know how much all of you guys have seen. I know, Phil, you stuck around with it at least, right?
Yeah, Fitz was great after they stopped being mean to him and doing mean stuff to him for the first few seasons.
And after the first season, when he had, like, the memory problems, like, he did such a good job acting that out.
Yeah, I love Fitz. I would love for somebody from Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. to show up. I do definitely think Doctor Strange is going to show up. It's inevitable. But I don't think he's the Cameo. And we could be off. The Cameo might not be the engineer at all. But the engineer just stuck out to me this episode that I kind of feel like it's going to be somebody that we already know or a new character.
What if it's like, they're probably doing the engineer next week, like Jeff said, but what if it's like an AEW Matt Hardy, Brody Lee situation where it's not on the same episode, but like we get the engineer next week and we all think that's the big cameo, and then they give us another awesome like return or debut or some shit in the last episode that's not Doctor Strange. Like, I feel like it could be a 1-2 punch, you know?
That makes sense. Doctor Strange is totally Kenta showing up with the briefcase.
Maybe. Yeah, actually, you know what? Yeah. We're bridging worlds here, so why the fuck not? The forbidden door is open here in the multiverse. So why the fuck not?
I feel like we got 3 episodes left. The engineer, whoever that is probably next episode. I feel like the Skywalker level cameo would be the next episode after that, and then I think Strange or Wong is showing up at the end.
You know what? I honestly prefer Wong over Doctor Strange, just because I think that'd be funnier.
Well, and he's a great character too. Use him.
Yeah, Wong is very underutilized. We didn't really see much of him in after Infinity War in that one scene, and then a little bit obviously at the end game, and that was about it. So we need more Wong. Fuck Hayward and more Wong. That's what I say.
In Infinity War, he was like, "Nope, out of here."
He's like, "See ya, I'm head out."
What if it's Mordo?
Oh, maybe. Maybe
that's a good one too.
Chiwetel Ejiofor, man, like, awesome actor. Paul Bettany would totally be stoked to work with him, probably.
Mordo would be great. I would love to see Mordo return.
What if evil Hayward and evil Mordo are working together on this shit?
That's a conspiracy theory I like.
I'm telling you, man. It's QAnon.
Yeah. If just to jump in my Kendrick Perkins voice, if Mordo was in the bubble, I would be all for it.
Oh man, yeah, this show. And then I've heard a lot of people speculating about the character Nightmare being involved because the word nightmare was said twice in this episode. Like, people are diving deep and looking for shit. I thought Brother Voodoo was going to be involved just because Voodoo Child was used in the one episode.
Yeah.
Isn't Nightmare the villain in the Doctor Strange movie?
Yeah. I think he's confirmed to be the villain.
I think that's, yeah, and like this again could tie into all of that.
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, if they want to tie this in without using, and Wong would be cool, but if they don't want to use Doctor Strange, but if they use Mordo or Nightmare, I think that'd be a clever way of kind of killing, two birds with one stone type of thing, where they get that crossover and they get an appearance that we weren't expecting. So I think that'd be cool.
I don't know. I don't want them to leave Chiwetel's character out in the dust, though. Like, they set up Mordo to be a villain, and if he's not in the next movie, I'm going to be a little disappointed.
He's got to be. There's no way it's going to be like a Professor thing from the first Hulk movie where they just don't explain it and they just completely move on from it. I know it's been 5 years, but I think it has to. I don't know where the hell he's been this entire time throughout everything that's going on, but I mean, he has to be the...
What if he's the engineer? That would be so fun. He just shows up. He shows up with his big ass head. Nobody says a word about it.
Maybe.
Yeah, I kind of think Mordo is either gonna be around behind the scenes in the second movie and be the big bad in the third movie, or he's gonna have some kind of big part in the second movie. I don't think they're gonna just completely do away with him.
No,
he was too much of a big part of the first movie to not go back to him at all.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe he's Herb.
He's Herb in this guy. Maybe. I'm trying to tell you, Mordo's in the bubble.
Look, if you get an actor like Chiwetel Ejiofor, you don't just not use him. And I know these Marvel contracts are for multiple movies, so they got to bring him back at some point.
They will.
He's just too good to not use.
Right.
They definitely will use him. He's not Luke Skywalker-esque. Like, when I hear Luke Skywalker, unless Elizabeth Olsen, it just has no idea. Like, to be fair, though, I don't think she actually said that. Whatever interview she said that in, the reporter or the interviewer phrased it that way. They said, "Are we getting a Luke Skywalker-esque appearance?" And she just said yes. So, unless her just comparison is way off here and it's someone that's not nearly on that level, I think he could absolutely be the engineer or someone along those lines. I just don't think it's the big cameo that everyone's been talking about up to this point. I don't think it's him, but I think he could still show up though.
Yeah. Well, Graham, who do you think it could be? Because we've all talked about it.
I'm just gonna stick with, I don't know why, but I'm just gonna stick with Ian McKellen or Patrick Stewart. Now I know the reasons why you said why it won't be them, and I completely agree with you guys, but just the way that Paul Bettany was talking, like, he was so excited for people to see whoever this is. So it could be Michael Fassbender. That's another option. But again, when I hear Luke Skywalker, I'm thinking, okay, everyone is going to know who this person is. Like, not just from, like, I didn't follow the later X-Men movies as much. I saw all the originals. If I saw Patrick Stewart show up, I'd be like, holy fucking shit. Like, that's amazing. Like, that's Mark Hamill level for me. Like,
are you saying you didn't see Dark Phoenix?
Did anyone see Dark Phoenix?
I don't love myself as much as Graham, so I did see it.
Same.
Yeah, if anybody from recent X-Men franchises showed up in this show, I would love it if it was Polaris from The Gifted show. Just because I love The Gifted and it was a great show.
That was fire, yeah. Sure.
The Gifted was, like, it was very entertaining and very ignored by, like, the major Marvel fandom, it seemed. Like, a lot of people almost didn't even seem to know what was going on.
Or missing out.
Yep, it was a great show. I hated that it got canceled.
Plus, Polaris, isn't she X-Men or Magneto's daughter as well?
Yeah, his real daughter.
Right. So she's their half sister.
He is not she is not a pretender like they call Wanda.
So, Phil, Jeff, I think you two would know more about this than I do. Are we going to get the cow?
Cow?
The cow.
So Wanda and Pietro were technically birthed by a cow in the comics.
What?
Yeah, I think we're going to get a good old retcon on that.
I don't think we're going to get any cow here.
Yeah,
there's some weirdness. Those characters have so many weird things in their backstory that's been changed over the years. But one of the things I saw somebody joking about in a YouTube video was how, like, there's some, like, mystical cow somewhere, and that's technically who carried Wanda and Vision, even though, like, they had, like, a mother and father. Mm-hmm. I don't know. The history with those characters is so strange.
Yeah, I don't think we're getting a cow. I did notice this episode especially when Pietro and Wanda were alone, it felt very much like the reveal in House of M when we find out that Pietro coaxed Wanda into starting the other reality. It seemed very, very similar to me, and I think that was intentional.
Again, makes me think this might not be Pietro. It's whoever is manipulating this. And also, so we already talked about the whole Grim Reaper, Satan, Devil potential because of the little thing in the second episode with the Devil's helmet being under the floorboards.
Well, that was Wonder Man's brother.
Right.
Reaper.
Right. Okay, yeah, the Grim Reaper.
Yeah, that was his brother's helmet.
And then later in that episode, I don't know if we even talked about this in our review, they go to that little meeting with Dottie to talk about the, talent show or whatever they're doing in the town square that night. And Dottie says the devil's in the details, and Agnes goes, that's not the only place he is. And it's like supposed to be just one of her sassy one-liners, but it's like that's got to have a deeper meaning.
I saw people speculating, I mean, this has been speculated forever now, that it could be obviously a hint at Mephisto, but there has been, I completely agree with that, but there's been no follow-up on that. Like, there's been no further hints that it could be, like, Mephisto could be involved with this at all. I feel like the further the show goes along, the less I think it's going to be about, like devil-related details. It feels like it's more than, it just, like, I don't know if it's technology-based on it. It's kind of hard to, it's difficult to put into words, but I don't know, I've lost any chance. Not that I was overly excited, but I think it'd be cool if he was in it. I don't think Mephisto will be involved, but it's still something, it's still possible. Anything is possible at this point.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. There's a lot of different places this thing can go. I'm super fucking pumped. We still got 3 episodes to go. This week, next week, and the week after. And then we have 2 weeks after that. We have, what's it called? Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which they put up the new 2-minute trailer up on, they didn't do it during the Super Bowl, but they did like the teaser, and then they put it up on YouTube in full and on their Twitter account and whatever. And it looks awesome. A lot of the same footage has been shown for like a year now, so it's nothing new. But that looks fucking great, and I can't wait to talk about that too. So this has been great, guys. Any final thoughts, Chris, before we ride off into the sunset here?
Just that, like, this show just keeps amazing me, and like how many things it makes me think could happen and then still managing to surprise me. It really is a triumph of storytelling. Like I think her name is Jack Schaefer, is the creator and like showrunner of the show. Mm-hmm. Like, I'd never heard of her before this, and now I'm probably going to be interested in anything she does, because she's taken what sounded like an obscure, strange project and turned it into easily the most interesting thing Marvel has produced to date.
Yeah, definitely. I would agree with that. It's definitely one of the most interesting things I think they've done in a while, and it's getting people talking. And you said it last week, Jeff, about how the way that they're doing it week to week, it just, as opposed to doing it all at once, it's just such a smart strategy. Like, they did the same thing with Mandalorian and Disney Plus, and it gets people talking for longer, and it avoids spoilers, and it's been great. So, any final thoughts from you, Jeff, as we wind down here?
I'm fully invested, along for the ride, and will not be a backseat driver. Take us where we need to go, and I'm with it.
I completely agree. What about you, Phil?
I think this was actually my favorite episode. Just as a big fan of Young Avengers, I was really excited to see Wiccan and Speed on screen. So I was just like, all right, hurry up, let's bring on Eli, get the whole team together. We already know Hawkeye's out there somewhere.
Yeah.
Man, I didn't mean to, like, I don't want to extend this out like a bunch further, but we didn't even talk about the fact that the twins basically manifested their powers like in full in this episode.
Pretty much, yeah, they did.
Like, we saw the kid discover his super speed, and we saw Wiccan kind of having his first real psychic experience with his father, and like the significance of that could be very important going forward.
This was very much a Billy episode, and I think having it centered around Malcolm in the Middle and making it a Billy episode was really smart.
Yeah, definitely. I agree with you, Phil, that I think it was my favorite episode yet, and I don't know much about the Young Avengers, but it was my favorite episode because of the Malcolm in the Middle parody. Like, you guys were talking about all the other shows that we've had up to this point with, like, Bewitched and all the other shows that I know about, but I didn't follow as closely as you guys did. Malcolm in the Middle is my shit, and my only complaint was that we didn't get an appearance from Bryan Cranston, but that's okay. Hopefully at some point in the MCU, we'll get some Bryan Cranston in the MCU. I think that'd be money.
We're gonna get right. He'll be in it. At some point, every actor will be in the MCU. I mean... It's
inevitable, yeah.
The movie, what was it, Kong Skull Island, was the greatest example of how we're going to start seeing multiple Marvel characters in every big movie going forward, because just about every big-name actor is appearing in Marvel in some capacity.
Are we sure that wasn't a part of the multiverse, and that was just, like, their Evan Peters, like, moment, you know, where they're just different characters in an alternate universe?
I mean, we literally had Loki, Nick Fury, and Captain Marvel in one movie that wasn't a Marvel movie.
I was going to say John Goodman, too, but he's not in the MCU, but he fucking should be.
Yeah, John Goodman.
Yeah. We need it.
Hell yeah.
I need it, so hopefully at some point. But yeah, this has been great, guys, so people can follow you, Chris, on the Twitter machine at BR_Dr. Phil at PhilDL616, and Jeff at Jeff J Says on the Twitter machine. Thanks so much, guys. Fuck Hayward, and I'll talk to you guys next week.
Thanks.
See you guys.